Hello everyone and welcome to another video. Now this is an AMD Ryzen 3 4300GE. It's a low power version of the OEM 4300G and is rated at just 35 watts. It's very elusive outside of pre-built systems, but after looking for another APU to add to my gaming without a graphics card video hardware lineup, I thought this would be an interesting choice. It has 4 cores, 8 threads and is clocked at 3.5 GHz with a boost speed of 4 GHz. The onboard Radeon graphics are clocked at 1700 MHz and feature 6 graphics cores. The 4300GE worked on my Gigabyte B450M S2H motherboard straight out of the box, and I've got it paired with 16 gigs of 3200 MHz dual channel DDR4. I'm not sure what I expected from this CPU, but I've spent the morning playing some of my favourite games, and it's safe to say I'm pleasantly surprised. The addition of FSR and res scale options in certain titles definitely helped, but there's always the option of a lower native res. I just tried to go as high as I could with the graphics settings today and still retain a playable experience. Cyberpunk 2077 is first, and after setting the native output to 1080p, I switched on FSR and selected the balanced mode, which meant that we could hit a plus 30 FPS average. As expected, the 1.1% lows left a little to be desired, but these numbers could also be negatively impacted by the 4 physical cores, especially when it comes to speeding through busier in-game areas. The game was definitely far from smooth, but I wouldn't say it was unplayable. Not ideal, but not terrible. Far Cry 6 is always surprising me with its performance. It seems to be fairly well optimised, or at least, friendly towards quad-core processors. All I know is that here with FSR on and set to balanced mode yet again, we were not only getting a solid average but decent percentile figures as well. The FSR options mean you can take the visuals all the way down to a blurry mess if you want to, so this game really is ideal for lower end hardware users. GTA 5 at normal with FXAA enabled and the detail sliders halfway gave us over 60 FPS. This was at native 1080p. I'm tempted to revisit GTA 5 properly in a gaming without a graphics card video actually, because it's had many patches and updates since its launch, so I can only assume that performance is a lot better these days than it was years ago. This Ryzen APU is a great example of how GTA will run well at Full HD with no adjustments to the render scale on a CPU without a discrete GPU. I wonder if a modern Pentium could do the same. We'll definitely re-benchmark this title. Forza Horizon 5 has dynamic resolution options and they will help with performance, but I decided to be a bit daring and leave that off. So we are running at native 1920 by 1080 here with the low preset and FXAA on. Just under 40 FPS was the average, but for those races that take place in or around towns and busier areas, I would suggest either enabling the dynamic resolution option or just lowering the native resolution to 900 or 720p. It's certainly playable as it is though, at least in races that take place in the desert. Fortnite at 1080p low probably didn't need the 3D resolution adjustment. The game was running at 85% here, but I thought it might help combat some of the drops below 60. The average FPS certainly improved, but there were still some frame time issues, which isn't constant. I mean, the game is certainly playable, but you might want to think about enabling an FPS cap to make things feel smoother. Just an idea, but as it is, Fortnite is more than playable and enjoyable on this hardware. Turning the native res down or enabling performance mode might also be a good idea. Finally, it's Red Dead Redemption 2. I probably went a bit overboard with the texture settings because I went for Ultra, but this makes the game look a lot better when everything else is on low. In combination with a 75% resolution scaling option, we did get just over 30 FPS. Like Far Cry 6, Red Dead seems to be happy with 4 decent cores, and in this case it seems to work just fine with no graphics card either. The 35W Ryzen 3 4300GE is fairly hard to find on its own, but if you come across a cheap pre-built with one of these inside and you're wondering if it can play games, the answer is yes. If you don't mind making some resolution sacrifices and scaling the graphical settings back quite a bit. Possibly further than I did today. Then again, those are the sort of things I'd expect to have to do anyway with any Ryzen APU. Thank you very much for watching then. This has been a look at the low power 4300 GE. If you enjoyed it, leave a like down below. Leave a dislike if you didn't. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, and hopefully I'll see all of you in the next one.